Oh, I've been happy lately, thinking about the good things to come, and I believe it could be something good has begun.
Assalamu alaikum, you're listening to the Y Factor on 87.6 FM, your favourite radio show.
Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one, and I believe it could be someday it's going to come. Someday it's going to come. Come on, peace train. Ooh, come take me home again.
That's right, everybody. It's me and Jamal on the mics today. We're going to be discussing some important issues down the track. We're going to be interviewing two big leaders in our community, Mariam Veiszadeh and Randa Abdel Fattah.
Yep.
And it's a pretty packed episode, isn't it? Like every week. Every week is an excellent episode for us.
Oh, every episode that I'm on with you is always my favourite.
We set the standard, Jamal.
And with Mohammed, of course.
And with Mohammed.
Love you, Mohammed.
We love you, Mohammed. You suck. I mean, what? Astaghfirullah.
Anyway, tune in. It's going to be an awesome episode. We're going to rant on Ramadan Olympics, and Silence's betrayal is coming up this Saturday.
You know, I came into the studio today, and I said, Jamal, I have in my mind exactly what I want to rant about. You know, I haven't done a straight rant in a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to talk about Instagram, and he looked at me with a blank face and went, what's Instagram?
Okay. I'm like, we should be talking about more interesting, important issues.
We do, okay, but I just want this 1 minute to take out my frustrations, okay? This is sickening.
Alright, we'll go ahead. Rashwani, let us listen to your rant.
Okay, look,
Instagram.
Wait, do you know what Instagram is?
Yeah, it's the photo application that people use.
It's a photo sharing application. The important bit is to share it.
Okay, on Facebook.
And the other important bit is that you get to add little like filters to it. You know, you get to add like a tinge and make it look like nice and yummy. Okay. That does not make you a professional photographer. Okay. I slaved away during that charity dinner a couple weeks ago for UTSMS, where a certain someone told me off for my photography. It's my fault. The lighting was, horrible. Point being that you are not a professional photographer if you Instagram. And stop taking like Instagrammy pics. It's annoying, okay? I probably shouldn't name names, but we have some pretty bad offenders in the community who just take shots of your spoon. Now I'm not saying I don't do that. I do, but my ones look beautiful, okay? My ones are really gorgeous photos. If you take a photo of a spoon and it's not even macro lensy thingy, whatever, then what's the point? You've taken a picture of a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
But they take it worse, okay? Like with my Instagram account, I try and not take pictures of food unless I'm cooking the food, because everybody does that. Why is people's obsession with taking pictures of food?
Well, people love food.
I love food. I don't need to take a picture of it. I love my mum. Do I have to take a picture of her every time I love her?
Well, you're sharing your love.
Mum, give me a hug and let's have a picture.
You're just sharing your love, like, doesn't mean you need to do duck face to the camera.
It's ridiculous, okay? It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Instagram people need to stop. Just stop. No, in all honesty, I do like the app. I get annoyed at people who post up really random, annoying posts. It's like Facebook even. You love Facebook because Facebook keeps you in contact with everyone.
Yeah.
But you always get that really random, annoying person. No, our page. Our page always has beautiful people.
Yeah, alhamdulillah.
He said with the question.
Yeah, well, that was because I started to think about some of the people on our page. But
all the people on our page are gorgeous.
Yes.
Are wonderful people.
Only because they like the Y Factor.
Only because
outside of the Y Factor, some of them.
Yeah, outside the Y Factor, I got some people on my Facebook page. Okay, that are like. Because sometimes you have to, because they're family or you work with them or whatnot. You can't reject their friend request. You friend. Okay, fine.
Wasim Rashwani.
I don't know what you're talking about. You their friend request. Like my brother came tomorrow. Why do you need to accept my friend request? Okay, fine. I will accept the friend request, and then they post up really random, annoying things like essays on why they like custard. What are you doing?
The thing that annoys me the most is when you get some guys who sort of take photos of themselves topless and post that up on Facebook. It's just as bad as the girls who
that's back to the Instagram thing.
Taking photos of themselves,
ridiculous photos,
kissing the camera. Like kissing.
Duck face. Duck face. That's
man, that's annoying stuff.
That's like it's a trend that comes directly from Facebook.
Have some dignity, people.
Seriously, some dignity. I think everybody should listen to that.
Anyways,
that was my teeny tiny rant. Because,
and this is the start to the show.
This is the start to the show. Next week is Ramadan, as we'll be pointing out. So there may be changes to our show going into the month of Ramadan.
Look forward to it, people.
Stay tuned for that. Another point, we are running a competition for a certain author that we're interviewing in this episode. We'll be posting up all the details on our page. Keep up with that. You could win some awesome prizes. Well, there's only 2 prizes, but you could win either one of those awesome prizes. Stay tuned for that. And inshallah, you also stay tuned for the rest of the episode.
Enjoy.
Come on, be straight. Ooh, come take me home again.
In the news this week, locally, the mother of a teenager who died after being hit in King's Cross says that, as far as I'm concerned, he's been murdered. The comments came as a coalition of emergency services workers called for urgent action by the New South Wales government in Sydney's trouble spots. On that note, Sydney Lord Mayors, past and present, are leading a call for action to curb violence in King's Cross after 18-year-old Thomas Kelly was fatally wounded in an unprovoked attack. Sydney police yesterday defended their presence in the precinct, arguing that Mr. Kelly's death could have happened anywhere as they continue their search for his assailant. Australia's relationship with Indonesia is at full throttle, and the opposition leader Tony Abbott was deluded to think he would strengthen it to the point the Indonesians would tolerate him turning back asylum seeker boats. The Minister for Foreign Affairs, Bob Carr, said. Speaking to the Herald from Cambodian capital of Phnom Penh, Senator Carr took issue with the claim that Mr. Abbott that a coalition government relationship with Jakarta would withstand any disagreement caused by returning boats. Melbourne's Anglican Archbishop Philip Fryer asked the Victorian Electoral Commission not to let Fred Niall's Christian Democratic Party change its name to Australian Christians. Archbishop Fryer and the Victorian Council of Churches complained that the new name suggests the party spoke for all Christians when its views were supported probably by a minority. But the Commission said it had no grounds to reject the name change, unfortunately. Finally, more than 600 people have already complained to the consumer watchdog about the carbon tax, but Prime Minister Julia Gillard insists it is a modest number. The federal government's $23 a tonne impost on the carbon emissions started on July 1st, and the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission said of more than 8,000 general complaints, it has only received 630 related to the carbon tax. In international news, Nawaf Faris is the first senior Syrian diplomat to abandon the government of President Bashar al-Assad. The move comes just a week after a Syrian general from a powerful family close to Assad also defected. Furthermore, in Syria, a delegation of Syrian opposition figures are visiting Moscow to discuss international efforts to find a political solution to the violence. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is holding talks with Abdel Saida, head of the Syrian National Council. Mr. Lavrov's deputy said Russia wants to move the opposition towards realistic and constructive positions. Aid agencies working in the world's largest refugee camp in Kenya say they are running out of funds, putting tens of thousands of lives at risk. Aid organisations including Oxfam and Save the Children say they are facing a shortfall of $25 million, but the need is greater than ever. The population of Dadaab, which lies near the Somali border, increased by a third over the past year. It is now home to almost 500,000 people. Last year, tens of thousands of Somalis flooded the camp to flee poverty and violence at home. Egypt's president has said he wants talks with other institutions to resolve a constitutional crisis over his attempts to reinstate parliament. Mohamed Morsi sparked a row with judges and the military at the weekend by issuing a decree reinstating the lower house of parliament. The chamber was dominated by Mr. Morsi's Islamist allies and was shut down by the military before he took power. And in London, it is being billed as the greatest show on earth. East London has become Lockdown London. The Olympics are the focus of Britain's largest security mobilisation since the Second World War. Soldiers are already on the streets, about 13,500 being deployed, more than in Afghanistan, along with tens of thousands of police and private security guards. Drones will patrol the skies over the Olympic Park, which is barricaded behind an 18-kilometre electrified fence and guarded with sonic weapons and 55 teams of attack dogs. The greatest local outrage has not surprisingly been triggered by the decision to sight surface-to-air missile batteries with orders to shoot down unauthorised aircraft in 6 residential areas around the park. That is the news this week, and I hope you have been updated.
Come on, be straight. Ooh, come take me home again.
Welcome back to the Y Factor on 87.6 FM, your favourite radio program in the whole entire universe.
Wow, man, I remember the Y Factor on Mars. Yes. Actually pretty good.
Yeah, wow, it goes off on Mars. So, welcome back to the Y Factor, and we're going to be ranting and doing our thing between Roshwani and ourselves. Whether you like it or you don't, stay tuned.
You know, like, most of our discussions are pretty timely. We talk about, what's coming up and what's...
Yeah.
So I think
what's on the mind of the youth.
Yeah, what's on the mind of the youth. I think... I don't know, if Ramadan is not on your mind at the moment, I think there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you need some help.
You need some help, brother. Even though I just found out it was next Thursday today. But that's okay.
Well, but then again, we're Shabab who are very lost.
We're lost. We all need guidance. Anyways, don't talk about me. It is next Thursday. Ramadan is next Thursday.
Yeah. So something else coming up in
Thursday or Friday. You know what that means?
They say like 19th or 20th. What?
You know what that means?
What?
Moonsiders. Dun dun dun.
Let's not go on to that topic.
The Moonsiders War.
The other thing that's happening this...
Actually, the early cannons are being fired. Kaboom, kaboom.
I actually have a friend of mine named Zohab Khan. Check him out on Facebook. He has a hilarious poem
I know him. He's a poet. He's a spoken poet. He's really good.
He has a hilarious poem that he does about moon sighting in Ramadan, and it's definitely like the whole debate that the community goes through. It's hilarious to listen to.
We're not going to comment on that because we're neutral.
It's nothing.
To each his own.
Exactly.
Ramadan is an open, beautiful month for everyone to enjoy. However you enjoy it. I don't care. Jamal doesn't care. We don't care.
Celebrate our unities, not our differences. And something else that's awesome that's celebrating the unity or the supposed unity of the world is the Olympics that's happening this year. This month.
All right, look, I'm a massive sports fan. I love the Olympics. Last time during Beijing, right? It was my 2008. It was my HSC. So I chucked my studies in the bin and sat and watched the swimming and the running and the cycling and all those kind of things because I loved it. But London, it's an interesting place, to have an Olympics. It's pretty well guarded now, isn't it?
Well, it is. But before we get onto that topic, what was my train of thought?
Ramadan.
No, Olympics. What?
I just had a mad idea. Imagine we had the Ramadan Olympics.
Hey.
Gold medal meals. Imagine that. All right, we get like the mums to all stand up and they do like a cook-off, like a MasterChef cook-off.
We have MasterChef cook-offs. Let's start. Okay, what competitions, Y-Factorians, would you come up with? Let's see.
That's a good one.
MasterChef cook-off between our mums.
100% my mum would win, brother. My mum's kabir. Bro, you ate at my house the other day. How good was it? Come on,
beautiful.
Man. It was beautiful.
I was actually hoping you'd have some leftovers so I could come around to your place.
You smashed it
the
next day.
There was no kibbeh, there was meat.
That was the barbecue. That was straight barbecue though. Yeah, but my mum's kibbeh goes off.
Anyway, mashallah. Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear what other people's mums are good at.
What other competitions would we run for the Ramadan Olympics?
Ramadan, obviously, it's all about reading. We could do like a reading Quran.
Okay.
Who could finish Quran first?
Yeah, or the amount of times, and then like.
Yeah. We could do like how there's like 100 meters, then 500 meters, then you could do like juz'at, and then like the whole Quran, and then how many times you can do that Quran? Like
the only trouble would be like if that was a real competition, then people would probably not really take the most out of the Quran, which is like really
that's true.
You meant to
contemplate. Yeah, you meant to contemplate and take.
Yeah. But anyway, but
we are joking. We are joking.
All in a jest for the Ramadan Olympics. What about if we're jesting? Then you could have a competition where people are like competing about who can be the most full and about to really puke from the amount of food that they've just stuffed themselves
I have a feeling some people might be a little bit offended
like a food competition. Or what about how many people you can feed, whether it's the poor or whether it's like relatives in Sydney. Internet. We could have an international. I just had like
a mental image of you kind of going and stuffing people's faces. Hey, come on eat quick. But look. In all seriousness, okay, those are good ideas, but I highly doubt we should make Ramadan a competition. It's more about yourself. It's more about improving yourself.
So it's a competition with yourself.
Yes, it is. It's a competition with. Actually, I was told something the other day by one of our good friends of our show, Nasser Al Khatib. He runs the other show. Yeah. He wants to do something along the lines of people should just tell us about their Ramadan resolutions.
Yes.
White people have their New Year's resolutions and
why not have a Ramadan
resolutions?
Yes.
Like lose weight. Who wants to lose weight? Nah, I'm kidding. But you know, it's a good idea. Like Ramadan is like the key month for us as Muslims. It's a key time. So we should have Ramadan resolutions, because of course every sheikh always repeats that if you don't take something from this Ramadan, you're not improved as a Muslim, then you've wasted your Ramadan.
And if you're not setting yourself a goal, then you have nothing to head towards.
Cool. Okay, so, Jamil, let's start with you. What's your Ramadan resolution?
I want to improve my iman and improve my din and come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
You can't. That's what everyone says. That's like generic. That's like saying I love the world.
That's because it's the most important one. Because like, you know, throughout your life, your iman goes up and down and stuff like that.
I'm talking about real like things that you can do. Not just sit there and go, yes, I'm going to be good Muslim.
All right. Like a proper goal.
A goal, like a set goal that you can achieve.
Okay. It goes without saying, fasting every day. You know, that's an easy one. Another one would be here's a goal. To have an iftar with, like, say,
all the boys,
with you know, all of my mates, at least once have an iftar or a suhoor with at least once with all of my mates.
Let's do it at my place again.
Yeah.
Why are we turning it to the wife factor people? Everyone's going to be like, we want to go to Rashwani's place.
But the challenge is, I have a lot of mates, so not all of them would be able to fit in your house. But then we could also do something. Okay, another
maybe we
resolution.
could go to the deliciously wonderful place that is Flame Steakhouse.
Yeah, we could do that. There's heaps of other awesome restaurants too if we want a variety for the whole month. But they have some awesome food. I was actually there the other week. Anyway.
Yes, I was there on Sunday as well. Brilliant
Alhamdulillah.
Yep.
Anyway, there was also
so that's one.
Something else I'd like to do.
Ramadan resolution.
Okay. So I'm going to write that down.
All his mates.
Yep. Or eat with them. There was actually some sort of, I think it was a story about Ibrahim alayhi salam. He never used to eat by himself. He always used to eat in the company of others, even if that meant going without food until he found somebody to eat with. And so, you know, it's something like you're sharing in the barakah with a meal. And so I think there was I can't remember whether it was a hadith or an ayah, forgive me, but it was like a meal for one is enough for two, and something like that.
Okay. Sharing, sharing food.
You heard that one before?
I've heard like something similar.
Where there's barakah that can be
sharing food. Yeah, exactly. We all know that to feed another Muslim who's fasting on Ramadan, there's a lot of barakah
involved. Yes.
So I have a couple of resolutions. Okay,
all right,
these are all pretty cool ones. Okay,
go for it.
All right. So the first one is I want to have an iftar on the floor.
Oh, that's standard, man.
No, not with my... No, okay. Well, sorry, Mr. Religious.
Okay, let's do this together. I mean, well, it's not standard, but I mean, I love doing stuff like that. I didn't do that. When I was in Egypt, we did that. And, yeah, in Egypt, we did that, like, all the time. It was beautiful.
But, you know, like... Well, I don't know about everyone's places, but at my place, we have, like, a dinner table, and you sit at the dinner table and you eat. I want to have one iftar on the floor, straight on the floor. If you have to go to Flame Steakhouse and tell him, sack the table, I'm sitting right in the middle. Traditional food on the floor.
Let's do this on the way. That's it. Let's do our one then that way. Actually, we should have, like, a Y-Factor iftar. Whoa. Or maybe, actually, how about this, guys? We have a pre-Ramadan, like, food
bonanza
together, at like, say, for example, Flame, because we were always saying we were going to do something there as like a final big bang for their support of the Y Factor.
That's right. So, we love you, Flame.
Yeah, so we could do that like before Ramadan or something together where we all
you've only got a week.
and then we can like have the next one at like your house where we're all sitting on the floor and we're having like another barbecue or something.
As much as I love everybody at our place, I don't think 1,500 people are going to fit in my...
Well, we'll see.
That's one thing. That's one thing that I want to do, eat on the floor. Second thing I want to do, now, I want to cook for people. I normally cook for my family, right? Make them pasta and stuff. But I want to bring like some boys over and I'm going to cook them a meal.
Cook for people. I'm writing that down. And what about spending time in the masjid, like say doing some i'tikaf?
I've never done i'tikaf. I'm going to be honest with you people here. Right. I've never done i'tikaf.
Time to start this year, Rashwani.
I don't know. Like it looks a bit scary to me. Like convince me, Jamil.
I've done i'tikaf. I haven't done it in a few years, but it's a beautiful experience as long as you stay, you bring stuff to keep warm, and as long as you don't just sleep through the whole thing, you actually make use of it. You use that time to reflect on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You want to try and improve yourself throughout your life. You really want to always try and struggle to come closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and through that way you want to do that by remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because when you remember Him, He remembers you, and it's always like this constant movement, inshallah, towards
it's almost like completely dedicating your time. You know how we say dedicate your time to Sam? It's like, okay, I'm actually going to do that. I'm not going to stuff around anymore. I'm actually going to dedicate all my time to Sam.
When I was on Hajj, the one thing that stood out for me when I actually came back to Sydney was the fact that when you're on Hajj, your days are revolving around Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's revolving around ibadah, around salat, around everything to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that really affects you to a great deal. Whereas when we come back here, your life is just normal again, and it's not, you lose that contentment and that sort of lifestyle that you had. And so maybe in Ramadan we can revive that and inshallah carry it on. We can gun it outside of Ramadan.
We can gun it to try and get that back,
inshallah, and hopefully to keep it outside of Ramadan is very important.
That's another thing. So one of the things that I like to do is that I like to add one little habit from Ramadan, and I take it with me outside of Ramadan. So every Ramadan I pick up a new habit and I take that onwards, after Ramadan. So for example, if it means praying duha, so you do that. Or if it means, reading on Friday Surah Al-Kahf, you take it up every year, take up a new thing. So this year, I'm not sure what I should take up, Maybe we can put it to our listeners. What do you think? What physical thing to do? Like, I can understand a spiritual kind of take it on, but I want to do something physical. I like to do something physical, like in my
practical.
Something practical. Something like, for example, a prayer, a dua to say, or something to do.
Yeah.
Maybe fast every Thursday. Maybe I can do that from now on.
Okay. Or
we should put it to the Wi-Fi listeners. What do you think I should do?
I'd say start maybe like dedicating some time towards, say, maybe something that helps or looks after other Muslims. So it could be maybe putting some portion of your income, whatever it may be. Well, whatever amount you can put, even if it's some food or something, right? You're poor, yeah. That's okay. Well, maybe like even if it's organising an event,
but that's true.
Such as Silence's betrayal, as you've been involved in.
Yes, I have.
You could contribute towards something like that, or you could even go out there and do something like that yourself.
True. I think our listeners are pretty good at that. Most of our listeners do go out and do those things.
Yeah.
I think maybe the Y Factor can get involved with the Villawood detention visits. I think that would be pretty cool. Maybe that's something we can take up.
Take some time out to go and do things that'll actually really could potentially change your life and help bring some happiness into somebody else's. Whether that's visiting people in the Villawood detention center, visiting some sick Muslims out there, whether they're relatives or not. Going out there and actually spending some time with people who might need the company. And actually spread the love around, I guess.
Spread the joy.
Yeah.
Spread the love.
Exactly.
It sounds like Christmas.
It's a fantastic sunnah. It's a very, it'll help you to appreciate the good things that you have, and help you to count your blessings rather than your problems. And you'll also be making a difference in somebody else's life.
That's true. That's true. So that's a fair amount of Ramadan resolutions. You got one more to add?
Oh, we could keep
your own
going
personal one, Jamil?
Well, going back to say going to giving back to the community. You said that a lot of our Y Factor listeners are actually part of these things. Actually, it's only a small percentage of our Y Factorians or even the Muslim community. Percentage? No, you just go to
I agree.
People who are actually involved. You need to, dear listener, you need to get more involved. Like, even if you spend 1 hour, 2 hours, even if it's half an hour, it's better than nothing towards doing something that'll help benefit the community or benefit your soul, yourself. True. But especially benefiting the community in some way, in a goodly way, if that's sharing a positive message, if that's going out, like we said, and visiting even the sick. Doesn't matter how small or big it is. You could be organising a rally like the Silence's Betrayal thing.
It's a flash mob.
Flash mob,
sorry. Not a rally.
Sorry. Which is happening this Saturday at 1 p.m.
at 1 p.m. But if you have not registered, please contact the Silence's Betrayal team so that we can allocate you a role. We did a couple of practice sessions in secret locations with secret people. Everything is in secret, including the actual location. So, like Bashar al-Assad and his agents won't come after you? It's not that. I mean, it sounds pretty dramatic, but it's not that. It's that we want to protect the people that are helping us out.
Fair enough.
And
that's why you're not giving the location of the actual.
The location is secret because not just because of that, but the location is secret because it is a flash mob. It's meant to be surprising.
Yeah.
If I told everybody there, and then half the community turned up with popcorn and ice cream, saying, "Yeah, we're going to watch this. It's going to be. It's not going to be a flash."
You guys are going to film it again this year, right?
Yep, we're going to film it. We're going to put it up on YouTube just like last time. Everything exactly the same, inshallah. So look forward to that. It will be on the Y Factor page sometime soon, probably in the next week or so.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome. I'm telling you from now, it's going to be so cool. I've seen the practice run. I've seen the way it looks. It looks amazing. Okay, we've got some really cool new costumes, some really cool new posters,
awesome,
and a really cool ending. Okay, that I came up with.
Nice.
What's the first Chinese Indian? No, I'm kidding. It's the team. Could I just do a shout out to the Science of Betrayal team? They're a fabulous bunch of people, and they're fantastic to work with. And I think that they're probably some of the brightest. They have some of the brightest futures amongst our community, so it's really cool. So keep your eye out for that. Yep. That's pretty cool.
And if you don't know about Silence is Betrayal, type it in onto YouTube. Silence is Betrayal. You'll see their first flash mob. It was pretty awesome. I actually want to be involved in this Saturdays, but I'm actually too busy to. I'll only be able to watch.
Have you registered?
No, but I know the secret location.
You can't know where it is. No, you don't know. I lied to you.
You did?
Yes.
Okay.
Astaghfirullah. I'm going to quit lying as soon as Ramadan comes around. It's out. Okay, people. So that's our Ramadan resolutions and our what's coming up. Please share with us your Ramadan resolutions. I know a lot of you would have some really cool ones. Yeah,
or your what you'd do for the Ramadan Olympics. What sort of competition you'd have? Maybe
we'd have maybe
shot put the iftar plate or something.
Javelin the waranab.
Yeah, exactly.
Things like that. Nah, we shouldn't waste it. We're joking, of course. We're being, it's just a joke, so please, nobody yell at me. Okay, then, we've got a couple of really cool interviews coming up.
Yeah,
with
look forward
two
to those.
Great sisters. Randa Abdel Fattah is talking about her new books.
Yeah.
And Mariam Veiszadeh will be talking to us about the refugee situation. So look out for that.
Look forward to those. I won't be able to sit into them, unfortunately, but they're sure to be awesome because they're awesome interviewers.
Inshallah. Alright, then we'll be right back then. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. You're listening to the Y Factor on 87.6 FM, your favourite radio show.
Come on, be straight. Ooh, come take me home again.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome back to the show. We have with us today a corporate lawyer, Muslim community advocate, and occasional opinion writer in Mariam Veiszadeh. Welcome, Mariam.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great. So, Mariam, you do come from Afghanistan, am I right?
That's right.
Yep. So, could you just give us a rundown of exactly what is going on at the moment over there? Because, it's pretty silent on what's going on, but it's not, in our media, it's pretty silent. But it's not that nothing is happening down there, am I right?
Oh, look, there's lots happening in Afghanistan. My understanding of the situation, I guess, is very much like anyone else, and that is an outsider's perspective. Although I'm originally from Afghanistan, people tend to ask me, do you have family there at the moment? I do have extended family there, but I'm not in touch with them on a regular basis to sort of know what's happening on the ground. But obviously based on observations and what we are hearing in the Western press, the insurgency is still happening. Instability remains in several parts of the country. We've got about 130,000 NATO troops there, and a significant proportion of that, about 90,000 of those, are actually US troops. And, we talk about Australia having a presence in Afghanistan and our troops and all of that, but if you look at the figures, the troops that Australia has is quite small, really, and they're only limited to one particular province. But in saying that, I think a discussion needs to be had about the presence of the foreign troops, whether they've actually been able to return stability to the country. And it's not just about initially when the country, Afghanistan was invaded. It was a discussion about, it was post-September 11th. It was about locating bin Laden, which took over 10 years to do. And when they did finally locate him, wasn't even in Afghanistan. That was the issue about getting rid of the safe haven for Al-Qaeda. And arguably, you could say to some extent that has been done. But what have we achieved for the rights of your average Afghan who's living in Afghanistan? Is their life any safer? And I think, most of us will know the answer to that.
What do you think the troops are still doing down there? I mean, the original reason was, as you said, post-September 11, war on terrorism, etc., etc. I think it was a couple months ago to last year when someone asked Julia Gillard, what are we still doing there? And she did not have an answer. What is your opinion on why the troops are still down there?
Oh, look, there's all sorts of theories and opinions on why they're still there. I think this will essentially be the longest fought war sort of after Vietnam, and we're getting over the 10-year mark. who knows? I have my own thoughts on why I think that there's a continuing presence of the Western troops there. I think it's this, unfortunately, it's this obsession with invading countries in the Middle East, obsession with remaining in these countries and trying to make it sound, having the moral high ground of we are trying to help, the inhabitants of these countries. And it's always Muslim countries, it's always Middle Eastern countries, it's always, countries with, fabulous resources and, oil resources, those kind of things. So this isn't a coincidence. I know that Obama's indicated that he's going to pull some of the US troops, and I think he said something by 2015, but if you look at the situation in Iraq as an example, that didn't actually happen. Yes, they reduced the numbers, but the terminology they use is a little bit misleading because they say we'll cease combat, the combat mission, but they say but we'll continue to have a support mission. And if you look at what they're doing there, I mean, you've got night raids, you've got aerial bombardments, you've got, incidents where civilians, including children, are getting caught up in this mess. And it's just frustrating that this is still happening. It's frustrating that incidents like where that US soldier went on a killing spree in the dead of night and so many Afghan civilians were caught up in that, including children, and some of these bodies were later, taken elsewhere and burnt. And the incidents, the alleged incidents about the Quran being burnt by the US soldiers, and these incidents itself shows that they might be their stated reason for we are here to help the Afghan people is one thing, but what's actually happening on the ground is another. And I think the Afghan people have truly had enough. And what I do acknowledge, though, is that there is mixed opinions on this issue. You ask Afghans living in Australia, do you think the troops should stay? Some will actually say no, very passionately, and others will actually say yes, I think they should stay. And I can understand the rationale behind that. And there are, I acknowledge the Hazari, people in Afghanistan are persecuted to this day. And so I know that, I have many friends who'll say, look, you know what, I think the troops should remain. But I think it's a broader issue, and we need to look at it. They've been there for over 10 years. They haven't been able to return that stability that they need. Maybe it's not mission accomplished. Maybe it's become mission impossible. And, the writing's on the wall, and, my opinion is they should get out.
What is the current, down there, obviously, there is some form of government at the moment in Afghanistan. What role are they playing in all this? Because one of the initial reasons behind it was obviously to eradicate the Taliban. They were holding the Al-Qaeda and whatnot. Currently, it's not obviously the Taliban. What role is the current government playing?
Well, the current government, I think the US and obviously other players have tried to enforce a Western-style democracy in Afghanistan. And it's only had limited success, I think. Obviously we've got Karzai, who was educated overseas and then sort of brought back post-September 11th, I guess, to deal with it and be the figurehead of the Afghan government. But in saying that, the corruption levels, just based on my understanding, are enormous, and it's not gotten particularly better. The problem is that you've got many warlords who are actually also either best mates with people in Parliament or actually have positions of influence in the government. And so, how do you weed the corruption out, and how do you know who's genuine and who's not? And that's the frustrating thing. So I think the Afghan people have lost hope in their own government because it seems to me to be a puppet government, really.
Are these warlords that you speak of, are they aligned with the US soldiers, or are they aligned with someone else?
Oh, look, I don't know that level of detail. I suspect they're not aligned with US soldiers. It's, I think, from reports and things that I read, it's a bit of a mixed perspective. They're kind of connected to the Taliban as far as I know, and so it's just about, bribery and corruption, you give me money and I'll make this happen for you kind of thing. So I don't think they're with anyone in particular, but they're certainly not trying to, help bring stability to the country or helping the cause in any way.
Definitely. Well, it doesn't seem that way from what we're learning at the moment. But to bring it a bit closer to home, Alexander Downer recently commented on the situation, saying, to put it simply, that people that are coming from Afghanistan to Australia to seek refuge should stay in their country. What did you think of that?
Look, it's incredibly frustrating for, one of our ex-foreign ministers to come out and make a public statement like that. Yep. It's, back to the Howard era, really. Downer was his right-hand man, so naturally his comments are very much reflective of the way Howard operated and ran the government. Look, I think it's a very ignorant perspective. It's either he's showing malice and ill intent, or he clearly has got no idea, because our soldiers have a choice when they go to Afghanistan. They sign up for that. They have a choice to go there and put themselves in that situation. Afghan civilians don't. Nobody. I often make this argument. Nobody chooses where they're born. I didn't put my hand up, and say I want to be born in a war-torn country. Nobody has that choice. And just as Alexander Downer, I'm sure, have played no part in being born in what we call the lucky country. And so for him to have this arrogance about him, this level of almost looking down at people from Afghanistan, why don't you go back to your own country and, build it up? I think if you are someone like my father, for example, he would love to be in Afghanistan right now. Who wouldn't want to be back in their home country? Who wouldn't want to be in a place where they feel that they fit in, they feel that they can speak the language, they can run a business? I mean, my father was running a very successful business, was absolutely loving his life there, had a very good position of influence there, and had to drop everything to come here. So I don't think, if the country was safe, people would return, but the problem is it's not safe. And my father actually a couple of years ago went back to Kabul to sell some of his properties, and I think at that stage he thought, it's safe to return. And the frustrating thing was that people found out that he was back, and they knew that when he did live in Afghanistan, he was actually a very successful and wealthy businessman. And the news got out that he was back, and he was staying at his cousin's house at the time, and a bunch of thugs came with guns and actually shot at my father and missed him and hit his cousin in the leg instead. So, Alexander Downer, if things were safe, believe me, there are people that will put their hand up to go back and help rebuild Afghanistan.
Latif, I hope your fathers and your cousins are okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, they got through that, but he wasn't badly injured, but it just goes to show that, these are sort of, this was several years ago, mind you, about 3 years ago now. Yep. It's the stability isn't there, and I acknowledge it's a very difficult situation. I don't think anyone has the right answer when it comes to, proposals for how to fix the situation in Afghanistan. It's very, very complicated.
Well, on that topic, just for a moment, in trying to move forward in Afghanistan, in trying to provide a solution to this mess, it's a pretty big mess. Where can they go? Do they have a revolution, an Arab Spring style coup that will remove the government? Or obviously the troops need to be removed, but where to from there?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. That is something I sort of made that argument in one of my opinion pieces that I wrote about Afghanistan. And look, it's hard to say. It would be naive to assume that the circumstances in Afghanistan are similar to, say, Egypt, for example. Yeah. There are definitely, major differences. Yeah. But at the same time, you can draw that parallel, and you can sort of argue that, it got to the point where the people decided, enough is enough, and they stood up, and that's when it was most successful. And if you go purely based on evidence, we've had NATO in there for over 10 years, and to date, yes, whilst there have been some improvements, they haven't been able to return, a significant level of stability to the country. So maybe we do need a revolution of some sort. Maybe, we need to return to the point where Afghans feel that they have their national sovereignty back, and that they have a level of independence that they haven't enjoyed for the last, 2-3 decades. And maybe that they need to be the ones that determine their future, and rather than having everybody else constantly, invading their country and telling them what to do.
That would be ideal.
Absolutely. We've just got to pray that, inshallah, that happens.
Inshallah. I mean, for them to have something like that, for the power to be put back into their hands, that would be ideal. Because it's been taken away from them for so long. I mean, through the Taliban and then the Americans and the invasion and now this mess of a government. They haven't had a lot of chance to express their freedom.
Well, exactly, and I think one other thing that's very important is, although, we can argue, look, troops should get out, I think one thing that needs to remain is that financial support in Afghanistan. I think one thing that is a very important tool is education, and, the school children of today will be Afghanistan's leaders tomorrow, and this is why we need to focus on their education. I think if everybody had an equal opportunity at education, we would produce our next prime ministers and presidents that will be able to actually go back to the country and make something of it. The international community needs to not forget Afghanistan in terms of financial support and charity and making sure they've got at least a sufficient amount of money to get them through the next couple of years. Yeah,
inshallah. Just before we wrap up, I do want to go back to Alexander Downer's comments. Unfortunately, as disgusting as they were in reference to the refugees. Of course, he was speaking about the fact that refugees were coming from Afghanistan to Australia, and he was saying that they should go back and fix their country. The refugee problem has been, well, let's not call it a problem. It's a problem in some people's eyes. It's an issue in others. Has been a wide-ranging one that is escalating, especially with the Christmas Island crash that happened recently. What do you believe the solution is over there? Because there were a lot of solutions bandied about by the two, the opposition and the government currently in power, about sending refugees back to Malaysia or things like that. What are your comments on that? Do you think that is a solution that will work, or do you think another solution is needed?
Look, I'm actually sick of hearing the debate on asylum seekers, and being over in Canberra, it just seems like I'm constantly surrounded by this debate. All of the discussion that's being had, particularly by our politicians, we desperately need to inject some compassion into this debate and make it real. I mean, they keep talking about boat people. It just frustrates me so much to hear that terminology. It's at the end of the day, these are human beings. You can't. It almost seems to me that what the government and the opposition, the coalition, is trying to do is, outsource their problem. It's kind of like, we can't afford it here. You know what? We'll outsource this call centre to India. In this case, we're outsourcing the issue, the obligation that we have under the Refugee Convention to, provide protection to those who are seeking asylum here. It is their legal right to seek asylum, and yet we want to sort of offshore them. So, look, my opinion, for what it's worth, is that I think we need to stick to onshore processing. That is our legal obligation under the UN Refugee Convention that we are a signatory to. People make the argument that, look, we haven't adopted that into our laws, and therefore technically it's not domestic law, it's international law, which means nothing. But in saying that, if we want to keep going on about our human rights record and how we uphold human rights and how we criticise others for not doing so, why can't we, take a leaf out of our own book and actually do that and, inject some compassion into the debate? The other option, it could also be, and it's been put forward, but I think by Julian Burnside, and that is to open up processing centres in some of these countries that asylum seekers go to first, and that is Malaysia and Indonesia, so that they can actually go to the Australian Embassy there and process the paperwork right then and there, and be told with some level of certainty that we are looking at your paperwork, we are processing your application, and look, the most amount of time it's going to take is maybe 9 months, not an indefinite 12 years, which some people actually face. So if you're able to give people a level of certainty in Malaysia, in Indonesia, then they will feel, confident enough not to risk their lives and get on boats to try and get here. This argument that they're using the back door, you didn't mention this, but Tony Abbott recently has come out and tried to label, boat people, his terms, not mine, as unchristian. And again, it just makes my blood boil that we're even having this discussion and getting religion into it. And, this is coming from Tony Abbott, who has actually trained as a priest. And you think that with his Christian values, that he would be able to, if anything, be able to see the humanity in this issue, and yet he tries to label them as unchristian. So it's just bizarre, and it's very frustrating to keep hearing the sort of negative commentary around this issue, and really, these aren't statistics or numbers; these are human beings.
Yeah, that's true, and that's something that's always constantly ignored in the debate, to push people to this country or to that country. At the end of the day, why are we pushing them out in the first place?
Absolutely.
It's a disappointing situation. However, we do have to wrap up this interview. Thank you very much for clearing all of that up, Mariam. We do enjoy you having on our show.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Jazakallah khairan, and stick around, people. We've got another interview coming up. Assalamu alaikum.
Come on, be straight. Come take me home again.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and welcome back to the show. We have with us a special guest. She came on a couple of weeks back with me as well, talking about Palestine. This time she's going to be talking about two of her new books that have just recently been released. One of the best authors in the community, Miss Randa Abdel Fattah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. How are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Excellent. So do you want to just give us a quick rundown of the two books that are being released, because they're pretty different to each other, aren't they?
Yeah, well, the first book is the second in the series, called The Friendship Matchmaker, and the book is called The Friendship Matchmaker Goes Undercover. So it's the second in that series, and it picks up where the first book left off, which is Lara Zaini, the main character, who's in grade 5, has decided to stop friendship matchmaking in her school. She had appointed herself the school's official friendship matchmaker, making it her business to basically boss the school around, sort out friendship problems in the playground, hold mediation sessions, until she decides in the end, because of some pressure from her new best friend, that she's not going to meddle in other people's business.
She sounds like a lawyer.
Yeah.
I can see where you get your inspiration.
Yeah. Well, it's very true, actually. And so in the sequel, she finds that the playground is in chaos without her intervention.
Oh, no.
And when the grade 5 bully, surprises her by asking her to find him a best friend, she finds that she has to go undercover and friendship matchmaking secret. And so there's quite a lot of issues.
Sounds enthralling. I can't wait to read it. Yeah.
So, and the second book is for adults. It's my first adult novel. It's called No Sex in the City, and I wanted to really have sort of a cheeky, sort of tongue-in-cheek look at the way that Chick lit has generally written about young women and provide sort of an alternative narrative. And I always felt that the popularity of the TV series Sex in the City, for me, it sort of felt a little problematic, because first of all, they were 4 white women in one of the most diverse cities in the world. So yet again, it was sort of whitewashing popular mainstream culture. And also they seem to be ambassadors, or represented as ambassadors of good feminism. And what I wanted to do was, not only, of course, did that not resonate with me because of their lifestyle choices, but I wanted to say with this book that there are other narratives, other stories, other sort of ways that people go about finding their life partner, and I wanted to take a light approach to that, but also open up that world. And it was very important for me that this be an ensemble book. So while the main character is of Turkish Muslim background, it's very much a book about her and her 3 best friends, who are kind of like the beginning of a joke. There's a Jew, there's an Indian.
Okay, I get that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
These 4 best friends. But you know what? That's very realistic in Sydney, because it is a multicultural society.
Yeah, I agree.
And what we see on TV and in popular fiction, it doesn't resonate with the reality of our multicultural societies at all.
That's a good point. You've obviously taken a bit from the actual show itself and made it more realistic, but to what extent have you used the stories within the show? The stories in the show are pretty, let's just say, adult. So to what extent have you stuck to those kind of structures?
Not at all, actually, because I would have to make a confession, which is that I hardly watch the show.
Oh, me neither. I don't like it.
And I couldn't really stomach it. Not just because that sort of those kind of shows don't appeal to me, but just almost as a feminist, those kind of pathetic women don't appeal to me. Women whose lives are defined by their search for Mr. Right, and who don't seem to take control over their own integrity and choices, that never resonated with me. So it was very much taking sort of the inspiration behind the idea of a popular cultural movement where you're looking at for, single women looking for Mr. Right, but then very much building my own stories around that, based in part on what I see around me. It happened to my friends and family, whether that's through meeting a guy that's introduced to them through family, and clearly, with most of your audience as Muslim, they would understand that. Yeah, and so, and it's something that, it's not explored enough. The whole chick lit genre is quite new anyway, but it's something that we are seeing explored in India, in Indonesia. We're seeing this alternative spin on chick lit, and then a good friend of mine, Amal Awad, who wrote Courting Samira here in Australia, again, looking at this idea of the door knocker peelership, as she, cheekily calls it. So there's a lot of potential there for these very fun, vivid stories to be brought to life.
I mean, we do hear a lot of serious stories in real life concerning these kind of issues, so it's refreshing to see a funny take, if you will, something a little bit lighter on these serious issues.
Yeah, and that's, good fiction, it should be able to realise that there is, much to laugh about in these situations, but also a lot to celebrate. But at the same time, I'm in no way at all saying that these sorts of scenarios only, produce fairy tales. I'm not interested in that. I'm also interested in the complexities of these sort of situations, the risks. I don't necessarily think that you're going to, be guaranteed success in love just because you go through meeting someone through family.
Yep.
So sort of I'll weigh up the reality of that situation, and ultimately, as with everything, it comes down to the individuals involved. Rather than us just labelling things as institutions, you see how they play out in life and the dynamic ways that people interact, in all sorts of situations, and I like to have fun with that, but at the same time there is a serious side to it as well.
Is that reflected in your book? Is it a bit of a balance between seriousness and comedy?
Yeah, it is. I mean, like Esma's world, and I was very, very sort of determined not to write some sort of a frivolous character. These four girls, yes, they're lonely. They're looking for Mr. Right, but at the same time, they're not defined by that search. So they're very active in their communities. Esma works at a refugee centre. Lisa works, women's refuge. Ruby's a high-flying lawyer, but she also does legal aid. Nirvana teaches her, native language at Saturday school. They're very much involved in their communities and families. And the thing with Esma's story is that she's also there's a sub-story in there, which is she's dealing with sexual harassment at work.
Yep.
And the problem for her is that she can't leave her job because she has to stay in it to hide a secret for her father, and she's financially supporting him. And some people might be surprised by the choice of that story. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a reality that happens in our community, and it's something that we don't talk about enough. And it's just the impact that has on her life causes some grief with her in having to stay in a job she loves, working for a boss she hates. But then there's also, meeting people and not knowing, how can I know if this person is the right one? Should I take the next step further? We've just met once in my parents' lounge room. Should I give it a go? Esma's mother kind of suggests in a cheeky sort of way that Esma, getting older, Esma finds this, she resents this idea that she's got this somehow, she's got a use-by date, all these issues, and not things I made up from thin air. They're things that, older friends of mine are going through, where they feel this pressure to just settle because they can't find the right person, or people criticise them for being fussy. And I just wanted to explore all that and show the turmoil and anxieties and conflicts within somebody who doesn't want to settle just for the sake of marriage. They don't see marriage as the end goal. They see happiness in marriage.
Yeah. That all sounds it all sounds pretty interesting as well. But it's a bit different from your earlier books. Your earlier books are all aimed at kind of teenagers, youth, younger people. Was it hard to write a book like this that is kind of very much different to your earlier work?
Not really, because I think my tone is is usually still the same, which is I like to do things through the prism of humour. So I had a lot of fun doing it. I think there's probably more liberation in writing for an adult audience. You don't have to hold back as much. Look, I'm not saying that there's really sort of serious censorship, but there are some things that you would deal with in different ways. But yeah, so it was a different sort of adventure for me writing for an adult audience. But to be honest, I much prefer writing for children and young adults.
Really? You prefer writing for children?
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm writing a 4-book children's series, and I'm also writing a book in a human rights series that's going to be released by Alan and Unwin, where they've got 6 authors writing a book, and the series is called It's Not My War. So each will pick up on the story of a young person in a war, situation of conflict and war. And mine is going to be set the time of the revolution in Egypt in last year.
All right,
from the perspective of a boy. So I love writing about that age group. I don't write for that age group, but I love writing about them.
I can understand the want to write for young people and the difficulties that might come in writing for the adults, in that some people might not want you to censor some certain things, or might not want you to be, or might want you to be more honest with certain issues. But what other differences are there between writing for children writing for youth and writing for adults?
Okay, well, when I write for the younger audiences, which is what they would call tween fiction,
from
8 to 13, I find myself having to consciously look back at my writing, and also in the editing process, we have to think, well, is this a little bit too adult? So something as simple as the fact that I had a storyline where there was online bullying, and my characters were on Facebook, and my editor pointed out that that someone who's under the age of 13 or 12 wouldn't be on Facebook. It's not allowed legally. And I said, but that's the reality. They are on Facebook. They're signing up to be their parents. And they said, well, but we can't sort of condone that through your writing. So that can show some of the tensions where you have to hold back. Another example is where I wanted to write a story that looked at the issue of a young girl who's going through puberty a little earlier than her peers, and sort of the anxieties she's feeling around that, and her falling into friendship with an older girl and her friends, and sort of the issues that arose. And again, because I was writing for a specific market with a specific publisher, they thought that might be a bit too much as well. There are these sorts of sensitivities you need to bear in mind, whereas in an adult novel, of course, there isn't that same sort of censorship. At the same time, writing as somebody of a Muslim background, there are some topics that I'm not interested in writing about, and that's not because I fear a backlash from the community, because I don't really care what the community thinks, because at the end of the day, I'm writing with my impulse is to tell stories, and it's a creative impulse, and I will refer to my own conscience when I write. For me, there are some topics I'm just not comfortable writing about, and then I'll use my own censorship in that way.
Yeah. On that issue of the Muslim community, we don't have a lot of authors in our community. Do you think you know why that's so?
I think it's probably just a matter of time as there's a generation shift. So you have to look at sort of the age of our community in Australia, and most of the people, who migrated here, I don't think the arts in any sort of culture is always sort of considered not a career path. The idea that you would be an author as a career path is probably something that was a little less palatable than wanting to study engineering or law. But I think as generations shift, and the beauty of a career in the creative arts is something that people can see more of. We're going to see more writers emerge. Certainly not something that, I still have a day job as a lawyer, because it's not something that you can really make a lot of money out of and sustain yourself.
I'm meant to be encouraging them.
But if you're going to do it for the money, then you're not really a writer in the first place. Yeah, it's something you do because you just love.
Yeah, I agree. There is a generational gap. The first generation of immigrants that came here wouldn't have, obviously, arts as their number one priority. They'd have making money and setting themselves up. But second and third generation, we probably will see a lot more authors.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I run a lot of creative writing workshops at schools, and I'm seeing more and more young people thinking that this is, really excited about this. And it also comes with family support and encouragement as well, which is what I had growing up my own family. If you instill that in your children from a young age, that love of reading and writing, it's something that they can continue. Even if they don't get published, it's still such a beautiful process to get engaged in.
Yeah, I agree. On that again, to go back to your first book, the youth book that's coming out, the one about the Friendship Matchmaker, the sequel.
Yeah.
You deal with a lot of issues in terms of bullying, in terms of schoolyard politics, if you want to call it that. Were you inspired by your work as a lawyer?
Yeah, a little bit, because you sort of see, I don't know if it was maybe it was a little subconsciously when you sit in those mediation sessions.
Yeah.
But what really inspired me to write Friendship Matchmaking was actually when I was at boot camp for the first time a couple of years ago. And the boot camp instructor asked all of us to divide ourselves up into groups of 4. And I was there alone. I didn't know anybody. And I just remember this feeling of dread come over me as I thought, oh my God, what if I'm the last person to be picked? Or worse, what if he has to fit me into a team? Which is what happened to me through school, or throughout primary school. I was the worst at sports. And so I remember thinking on that field out there in Granville Park, this feeling of wanting to belong never goes away. And then I started to take that, that anxiety and sort of imagine myself back as someone in primary school.
Yeah.
And then the character of Lara was born about, this little bossy bird who thinks that she has the answer to help kids fit in and get accepted and find a best friend. And she gives them this really awful advice as well about what not to do to make yourself stand out. And so I've had a lot of fun with it. I've had fun playing with a serious issue, and I think that by doing so, kids are able to engage with it. And I get so many emails from kids who are really taking Lara's advice very seriously. And I got an email the other day from a girl who has appointed herself her own school's official friendship matchmaker.
Really? Art becomes reality.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
But also with the sequels, so the Friendship Matchmaker goes undercover, I introduced a new spanner in the works, which is a boy arrives on the scene in grade 5 who's a refugee from Sudan. And I wanted to really, I had spoken at a school once where most of the students in the class that I spoke to were refugees from Sudan. It was a school in Victoria. And I remember just feeling how these kids, to say something very trite, were just like the other kids there. And yet, when we tend to think about refugee students, we tend to, we label them as refugees. We sort of, forget that they're kids like the kids, and they don't want to always have to have the burden of being this special case. And so this kid arrives on the scene at school, and Lara is, in her self-righteous sort of attitude, wants to immediately set him up with a friend. And she has to learn along the way that not everybody wants to be rescued and saved. Some people just want to have the space to find out who they are and fit in that way.
So it has like wider community themes as well.
Yeah, I hope so.
Well, yeah, actually, it sounds really good. I might get it and read it myself. I love twin books. I read all the Twilights and all those things. No, I'm joking. Both books sound really good, and I look forward to actually grabbing some of them and reading them. But on that note, again, we actually have a copy of each book to give away.
That's right. We're going to run a Facebook competition. First person to correctly answer the question on each book will get a book sent to them.
Yep. So the way it's going to work with our listeners is that once the show finishes airing tonight on the radio, we will post up the episode on the Facebook page, after which we'll wait around half an hour, and then we're going to post up both questions. First person to answer either question wins either book. If you can answer both questions, you win both books. Good for you. That will be around 7 o'clock, inshallah, to 7:30. Please keep your eye on the Facebook page around then, and something interesting might happen. Thank you very much for coming on our show. We greatly appreciate having an artist like yourself come on.
It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
Come take me home again.
So, that concludes our episode this week on the 12th of July 2012. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please keep your eye on the Fattah page for Randa Abdel Fattah's competition. It will be on tonight. Keep your eye on the page for the Silence is Betrayal video, which hopefully will be out this weekend. I hope you enjoyed the episode this week, listeners. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Oh, I've been smiling lately, dreaming about the world as one. And I believe it could be. Someday it's going to come. Someday it's going to come. Come take me home again. Ooh, come on, be straight. Yeah, someday it's going to come. Come on, be straight. Ooh, come take me home again.